I got a request to do a lesson about octaves. So the first thing that I would want to know about octaves if someone were teaching me is just the most basic octave shape and just to show me how to do it. So a good spot to do it would be on the 5th fret. Usually when I learn new stuff, it's kind of useful to do it either 5th or 7th fret because it's kind of a comfortable spot. So let's say you have this note. This note is A on the 5th fret. If you go over 2 frets and up 2 frets, then that note is the octave note. So this note was A. You don't even really have to know that, but this note is A. So if you go over 2, up 2, over 2, up 2, that's the octave. So these are both A. And then the most useful technique for octaves is to learn how to do this. So basically you can see I'm strumming everything right now, but all you're hearing are those 2 notes. And people do that a lot. People make octave solos where they'll be like, and usually people don't do that on acoustic, they do it on electric. And the reason why they do it is, first of all, it just sounds cool a lot of times, especially with distortion or effects on it. So a lot of times instead of playing like a single note solo, you'll just beef it up with octaves. But the other reason why people do that, and they'll shift their octaves around, is sometimes if you are playing like a power chord song and you want to sort of keep that power chord feel but be a little more flexible with switching chords, octaves kind of sound like power chords, but you can get away with more switches. Because if you start switching power chords around a ton, sometimes it just gives the wrong feel. So sometimes people will substitute octaves, or sometimes they'll even be playing octaves. Like right there I played a power chord, and then I went to an octave real quick right there. So sometimes people even switch like they'll go from one chord to an octave and back to the power chord. And sometimes that happens just because the person wants to do it, but sometimes it happens actually because you can start adding notes from outside the key in certain cases. So the first thing I would want to know again is you can start on 5th fret and go over 2, up 2, and that's an octave. Now I try moving that around. Move up to 7th fret, 8th fret. And one way to do it, if you know a power chord, the way I actually play octaves more often is I pretend I'm going to do a power chord, I just lift my 3rd finger up. So I have 1st finger and pinky. And that's like a super easy way to get an octave really quick, and I actually find that I have better luck using my pinky to mute everything out. So then after you do it there, you could try shifting it up. So 5, 5th fret, over 2, up 2. So this note is D on the 5th fret, this is D then. But you don't even have to know the note as long as you know the pattern, over 2, up 2. You can try moving it around on the 5th string. See how flexible they are? Like power chord starts to sound really weird if you were just to go like kind of random, but with octaves it's like a little more flexible because there's not as much harmony going on, even though power chords are like pretty neutral. They're like the most neutral chord. They still have more of a harmony because they have 2 notes, whereas octave is the same note. So then I would move it there, just around. And usually whenever I learn a new pattern, like if someone gave me a chord, like a little chord, I'd like to move stuff around and just kind of noodle around with it. Or if they give you a more complicated chord, I at least move it to like 2 spots just to get a feel for it. So I would do the same thing with octaves, just move it around because as you know, like things are wider down here and more narrow up here. So just try moving the shape around, and then it's usually also good to experiment vertically, except when you move shapes up vertically, they have a problem when they hit the B string. So here's the octave shape, over 2, up 2. But notice when we hit the B string, it doesn't sound good at all. An octave just, it's the same note, so it should sound perfect. That sounds horrible. So what happens whenever you hit the B string and you're moving up the guitar, it's like a little conveyor belt and it shifts wherever you would expect the note to be, it shifts it one to the right. So over 2, up 2. But because we hit the B string, it shifted it over 1. So now it becomes over 3, up 2. So that's what an octave looks like up there. You could shift that around. This actually is useful. Like when I first started guitar, I never used this, but I actually do use this kind of a lot now. Usually I'll use it more for like single note riffs. Like you know where the octave is and you jump up there. Some people even do power chords like this. It's pretty rare, but they do it. That would be a power chord. There's the shape. Like this would be power chord shape because you hit the B string, it moved over. And then if you move up here, over 2, up 2, but because we crossed the B string, it's going to be over 3, up 2. So there's an octave up high. Actually, one of my students was learning a song by Weezer called Hash Pipe, and they have a solo that uses octaves, and it starts like up here. Then it goes up here. So it was actually a good challenge because like these are kind of rare to use, and we were both struggling because he's pretty young. I've been teaching him for like 4 or 5 years, and he's really good now. Especially just like looking at the guitar and playing, and we were both really struggling trying to play a whole solo with these octave shapes. Because these are way more common and you start to get used to it, these ones. So anyways, there's the basic octave shape that I would want to know first. So over 2, up 2, over 2, up 2, anywhere, but then over 3, up 2 when you hit the B string. So those are like, that's mostly what people think about with octaves. But really all an octave is if you have it's finding the same note in the next scale up. So if you think about a piano, sometimes it's easier to imagine. Like let's say you found C note on a piano, like you could see the pattern with the black and white keys. You would just go up and keep finding the same note that followed that pattern. On guitar, it's harder to see the patterns of what's happening, but it's just the recurrence of that note in different octaves or in different ranges. So let's say if a C major scale, so here's C, so C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, so there's the next C, over 2, up 2, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, so there's 3 different octaves of C. But like I would just first master these patterns, and then what I would start to do is like you can climb up 2 octaves. You could go over 2, up 2, and over 2, up 2, but we hit the B strings, so over 3, up 2, and you can learn how to do this. Or like let's say we're starting here on like the 7th fret, you go over 2, up 2, and over 2, up 2, but we hit the B string, cross the B string, so over 3, up 2. So it's good to know how to go like G, 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 or D, 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 D. And that's useful to know. Another octave that is useful to know is if you take like a C major chord. These outer notes are C. This is a useful octave shape to recognize. So like these both are C. This would be D and D. Because people actually move this around. Not as often as people move this around, but you do see people move this around. Usually they usually with some extra notes in there, but they'll move this octave shape around. And if you analyze this is C and C. This note is the same as this. So actually this shape, if we start here on 3rd fret, over 2, up 2, this note is the same as this. So this shape is the same. The thing that's a little confusing is when you move this shape down, it actually changes to that. But that's because this note got closer because of the B string, whereas when you move down here, it's a little bit wider. So this would not be worth memorizing. This is not very common. This, I think, is kind of worth knowing about, and then it's the same shape up higher. So there's an octave shape. So there's this shape, the basic one, stretches when you get up here. And there's this guy, which is the same thing up here. And that's really it about octaves. So like the main technique though is just learning how to go. Like learning how to keep this hand going while you're doing octaves. And then it's kind of cool to start learning like how to add extra notes around the octave notes. Yeah, there's one more thing I would say about octaves, but it's more about finding all the other notes on the guitar. Maybe I'll do a lesson about this at some point because I think it's pretty cool. But there's a pattern where you can sort of use these ideas, everything I just talked about, to find all the notes on the guitar. But I think that's a little beyond what I should talk about right now. So hopefully that makes sense. What an octave is, and the reason why it's called octave, it's like the number 8, because if you have a major scale, say we got C major again, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Well, if you count the numbers of the major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the 8th note is the octave, so like octave as in 8 is the 8th note. But it's kind of confusing because we never call that the 8th note, we just call it the 1 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. So the word octave implies 8, but we don't actually ever call it the 8th note, we call it the 1. You could call it the 8 and people would know what you were saying, but really they would just say it's the octave note, or it's the 1 again. So like the 1, 1, 1 of the major scale, it's the 1 of the major scale. So that's it. Hopefully that was helpful. That's all the stuff I want to know about octaves. And really it's a pretty simple concept, and it will help you to find other notes on the guitar if you understand it. Because you can be playing in one spot. So yeah, this is the last thing I would say. Like let's say a G. Let's say you made up a riff down here, like you were like... And you liked that, but you're like, it's too low, I need to move it up. Well, what you could do is just find the next G, so over 2, up 2. And just play it there. You could be like, well, I want it even higher, so over 2, up 2. We hit the B string, so it's going to be over 3, up 2. Then to go higher, you can't go higher, so you'd have to figure out a new way to play it up higher. So that's it. That's all the main stuff I'd want to know about octaves. Sorry, bye.